Good morning and welcome to another of our interviews in Religion Digital. My name is Cameron Doody and today I have the very great pleasure of interviewing Father Laurence Freeman. Father Laurence is a Benedictine monk and he's also the director of the World Community for Christian Meditation. Good morning, Father.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here.
It's good to be with you.
Let's start with a biographical sketch. Now, I've read that before you became a monk, you worked in the UN, you worked as a banker, you worked as a journalist. Tell us a bit about those experiences.
Well, I worked in the United Nations when I was quite young. I didn't have a very important role, but it was a very exciting time for me. I worked as a general assistant to the British ambassador at the UN in New York. And I had always been interested in the work of the UN and also in the youth movement of the UN at that time. Then I went to university. I read English at Oxford, and I decided to go into banking because I wanted to do something different, get away from books. Right. I wasn't particularly interested in money, but I wanted to know how it worked. So I worked, interestingly, it taught me a lot, gave me a lot of compassion, I think, for people who have to work in that very stressful world, although when I was working there it wasn't quite as stressful as today. And then I moved into journalism, which was closer to what I really wanted to do. I'd been introduced to meditation by my teacher, the Irish monk John Main, when I was in my first year at university. And there was the opportunity to spend an extended retreat at the monastery, his monastery in London. And I was in transition between careers, so I thought this was a good time to finally get to learn what meditation meant and get myself into a discipline. So I did, and at the end of the retreat I discovered to my shock that I had lost my ambition for a worldly career. And so I then had to struggle with the idea of becoming a monk. I thought I wouldn't become a monk immediately. I would wait another 20 years, maybe. But then I thought, well, I must try. So I decided to try, and as soon as I did, I felt very peaceful about it. So that was my trajectory into monastic life.
I see. So the calling to religious life has always gone hand in hand with this interest in meditation?
Yes, for me it has. Yes, I became a monk because I wanted to make meditation, which is an inner journey, but also it's an outward way of life, of course. I wanted to make that central to my life, and I wanted to help other people to discover it.
Okay, and the World Community for Christian Meditation, does that come from that point in your life? Have you always been involved in that? Is it something that's grown since then? Yes,
it's been growing really since for nearly 40 years, actually. Okay. In 1990, we had a meeting of our national members at a John Main seminar in the States, and it was in 1991 we formed the basic structure of the World Community. And since then, it's been growing around the world. We now we're present in more than 100 countries, I think, and we have 67 national coordinators, including one here in Spain. And so it's evolved, and it's continuing to evolve.
And you were saying before downstairs over a cup of coffee, you're about to, in the community, to begin a new monastery, is that correct?
We are starting a new centre, which will be in France. This will be a centre and a home for the World Community for Christian meditation. It will also be a centre of peace and for peace for the world. So it will be a place of where we have meditation, the practice, the daily practice as you would find in a monastery. The rhythm of the day will be constructed around the times of prayer, and like in any Benedictine monastery since the 6th century, there will be hospitality and there will be a diversity of members. So it will be a new expression of the ancient Benedictine life. In fact, this home in near Poitiers in France was originally a Benedictine monastery from the 12th century until the French Revolution. So in some ways we are reviving an ancient tradition there. But it will be a new form, a contemporary form of this monastic life, and it will be involved with dialogue with the major institutions and areas of life today where there is often a sense of crisis and confusion. So we believe that we can be, in a small way, a contemplative center and help to bring a contemplative vision to the problems of our world.
Okay, so that's in France. Any plans to come to Spain? Or is the World Community for Christian Meditation already present here in Spain?
We're already present in Spain. Actually, Spain was a little slow to develop in our global family, but it has a strong base now. We have a very good coordinator, and we have groups. Originally, it began more in Barcelona, in Catalonia, but since then, the national coordinator is here in Madrid, and it's been growing very, very well indeed.
Do you think meditation is the answer to the decline in vocations to the religious life? Is it the way forward, the future for rejuvenating the life of monks and nuns?
Well, religious life is diverse, and the motivations for entering it are also diverse. But I think there is a deep need in religious life, but also in the church and in society as a whole, to reconnect with the contemplative dimension of life. Meditation is a very simple, I don't say it's easy, but it's a very simple way of developing that contemplative life, which is restoring balance and integrity and health, really, not only physical health and mental health, but spiritual health as well. So meditation is a very simple practice. We teach it as a daily practice that can be integrated over time, perhaps into a morning and an evening meditation session. The weekly meditation group helps to develop that. Of course, we also have a lot of online meditation groups now. We've had a bit of a surge in the last few years in meditation groups that meet online. So there is a natural hunger, I think, in the world today for depth and interiority, for meaning. We have become disconnected from not only from our religious tradition, but we've also become disconnected even from our own spirituality, from our own interiority. Meditation is a way that can help not only monks. I think it's vital for monks. I could not be a monk without meditation. But also for people in every way of life.
Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the meditation. How is meditation different to prayer, for example? How would you even say that it was different?
For me, meditation is prayer.
Okay.
It's a kind of prayer, a dimension of prayer. We can call it the prayer of the heart. If you think of prayer as a big wheel, and the different spokes of the wheel are like the different forms of prayer. So we put in going to church, we put in the sacraments, we can put in petition, intercession, the different styles of prayer and different traditions. And also, I think today we would have to put in as a way of prayer, in a sense. For many people, their exercise is a contemplative practice even, or walking in the country, or listening to music, or making music. So anything that we can do with attention and love for its own sake, not because we're getting money from it, not because it is good for our CV, but because it's good in itself and it enhances our total humanity. I think we could call that a spiritual practice or prayer in a sense. Now, all of those spokes of the wheel converge in the hub of the wheel. Now, in the hub of the wheel is, what do we find there? In a way, there's a kind of emptiness there, but it's a full emptiness. As a Christian, for me, I also find the mind of Christ. Christ in you, St. Paul says. That's the fundamental idea of Christian life, that Christ is in us as well as among us. But we could also say that at the center of a wheel, we find stillness. And if there's no stillness at the center of the wheel, the axle isn't strong, then the wheel won't be able to turn around it, and you will lose your sense of direction and you won't stay on the road. And I think for many people today, that loss of stillness in themselves at the center of their lives has caused a very high level of dysfunctional living. We teach meditation at a business school. I'll be visiting ICARDI here in Madrid tomorrow. But we teach a course at Georgetown University Business School in the States. And when I meet the MBA students who do this course, it's on meditation and leadership, because we believe that meditation will create better leaders. I'm always saddened and struck by the high level of stress, anxiety, often with physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, panic attacks, insomnia, anxiety, depression. Now, these are the leaders of the future. These are young people, maybe 30 years old on average. For them to be experiencing this high level of stress, I mean, stress is part of life.
Already so young.
I know.
Yes.
And even now, we teach meditation to children. The level of mental illness among children is increasing, maybe because of their dependence on devices, and for whatever reason. So we believe that meditation is a simple way, not easy. It's easier for children. Children love to meditate.
Is that right? Has that been your experience?
Absolutely. I go this afternoon. I'm going to a school here in Madrid, and I'm sure, like in every other part of the world, we teach meditation now in schools in 30 countries. In Latin America, we work with an organization of schools called Fe y Alegría, which was founded in Venezuela. It's for poor children. So the motto is, "Our schools begin when the pavement ends," and the best education for the poorest children. And actually, in Venezuela, they're the best schools in Venezuela, as it happens, they're present in many other countries in Latin America. There are 1 million children in that school system, and so the head of the school system is now integrating meditation into all of those schools. And when you visit those schools, or in the States or the UK or France or anywhere, you will, Australia especially, you'll find the children respond to meditation immediately. And I think we have a responsibility to teach meditation to children as a life skill to live in the modern world. But if we do teach them, they teach us. They will show us something that we have forgotten. So I think meditation is certainly, for me, it's a way of prayer. But I think it can also be shared with the secular world as a gift. We don't sell it. We don't charge for teaching meditation.
Precisely in these areas of healthcare and management and education?
Exactly.
Okay.
And we have a very interesting program in Ireland, the Royal College of Physicians. We work in bringing meditation to the medical profession there.
Okay. Now, one of the other areas of your work, as I've read, is that of interfaith dialogue. Explain to us the connection between meditation and interfaith dialogue.
Well, it's very important that the religions of the world understand each other, that they develop a friendship and a collaboration for the common good. The danger of religion, if it loses its contemplative core, and every religion has this spiritual depth, this contemplative core, if a religion loses it, the religion begins to die, or it becomes dangerous, it becomes fundamentalist, ideological. So we believe that meditation opens up the common ground between people of different faiths or people of different cultures and backgrounds. And when we have dialogue with people of other faiths, and meditation is present within that structure, within the time that we spend together, the dialogue improves immensely. So, for example, some years ago we invited the Dalai Lama, who is a great model of dialogue. He understands what dialogue is. We had a seminar with him where he spoke about the Gospels very courageously, because he said, I don't really know much about the Gospels, but he spoke with great insight and reverence on certain passages of the Gospels that we gave with him and I discussed with him. And I think both for the Buddhists and for the Christians present, this was a very special moment. It's published actually as a book called The Good Heart, published in Spanish as well. So this, and we meditated during those days. We meditated 3 times a day together. And that created an ambiance, it created a trust. When you meditate with somebody, your relationship with them deepens.
And in the practice of your meditation, have you incorporated elements of other religions, the meditative practices of other faiths? I'm thinking perhaps of Buddhism, or is that part of your practice?
Well, essentially, no, I suppose. Essentially, I mean, we're open, of course, to learning from other faiths, and I think this has been happening, for thousands of years. Religious traditions and cultures, religion and culture are often very deeply entwined. So we learn from each other just as we do culturally or politically or artistically or musically. So we can learn and integrate wisdom and ideas, good ideas, from wherever we find it. But essentially we teach meditation from a Christian tradition. Right. This is a tradition that goes back ultimately, of course, to the teaching of Jesus on prayer. Mm-hmm. If you read his teaching on prayer, I think you can't avoid the conclusion that Jesus is a teacher of meditation, teacher of contemplative prayer. He doesn't tell us you have to go to church or synagogue every week, you have to obey these rules and regulations. When he speaks about prayer, he says, go into your inner room, close the door, and pray in that mysterious place. He says, don't speak too much. He tells us to lay aside our anxieties. He tells us to pay attention, to be in the present moment. So clearly Jesus is a teacher of contemplative prayer. He was also a religious person and followed the rules of his religion, but his actual teaching is contemplative. So we teach from a tradition that began there, that became explicit in the early monastic movement, which began in Egypt in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th centuries, and of course has become part of the Christian mystical and contemplative tradition. Unfortunately, most Christians are not very well acquainted with their own tradition in this respect, and prayer for them is often, maybe here in Spain in a particular way as a Catholic or maybe post-Catholic country, it focuses particularly on external forms of prayer, sacraments and worship and so on, and for many people this has lost its meaning. But there is another very deep and rich other dimension to Christian prayer, and that's our work is to try to revive that, not only to revive it within Christianity, but which is our in-reach, as we call it, but also we realize that there are fruits and benefits from this wisdom which can be shared in a secular world. So when I teach the MBA students, for example, I tell them at the beginning, or the doctors, I said, I'm not trying to convert you, I'm not trying to change your belief system. And as a monk, I'm teaching meditation, as we do in our community around the world, because we believe this is a gift, a valuable gift to share, and it's as simple as that. So the people who might be watching us, who are interested in thinking about this gift, who might be thinking, well, I might like to start meditating, what would you suggest that they do first?
can one do it by oneself? Does one need to join a group? Should one read something beforehand? What would be your advice?
Well, you start where you are. If you're watching this online, you could go to wccm.org. That's our website. You'll find our international website. You'll find a link there to the Spanish website. It's a very good Spanish website, actually. It was started by the Latin Americans, but it now incorporates the Spanish-speaking world.
Okay.
So that would give you some more information, and it would tell you how to make a connection. I would say that the practice of meditation has to be a personal practice. Eventually you want to try to develop it as a daily practice and balance each day on these two moments of stillness and silence. There's a tremendous benefit in that. But in order to do that, I think 99% of people, including myself, benefit greatly from a sense of community and a sense of tradition, so that you're not doing this alone. If I was to learn Spanish one day, I would not be able to do it on my own. You know?
Yes.
I'd have to find some other patient Spanish speakers or teachers to do it with me, to help me. But I'd have to do my own learning. So it's that combination of, as it were, one's own solitary practice, but the sense of community is a great support. And we have, as I say, meditation groups that meet in people's homes, in churches, in all sorts of places. And the online meditation groups, I think, are a contemporary expression of that need for community.
Wonderful. And one more question. You have your visit to Spain these days, but you were telling me before you have another conference planned for September. That's the next project, the next big project for the...
Yes, well, we have... meditation creates lots of projects.
I'm sure. But tell us about this conference taking place in September, about the crisis that we're going through.
Sure. Well, this is, every year we have the John Main Seminar, and we've had many wonderful speakers over the years, including the Dalai Lama and Mary McAleese, the President of Ireland, and Charles Taylor, the philosopher. So every year we have this in a different country. It's hosted in a different part of our global family. This year, it will be a little different. It will be in Belgium, in Bruges, the city of Bruges, and there will be a number of speakers, extremely stimulating speakers from different fields of life and interest, who will be speaking, addressing the question of new ideas, of a new contemplative approach to the problems and crises that we face in the fields of economics, politics, social justice, medicine, as well as religion and science. So in all of these areas there are paradigm shifts, changes taking place, and they're exciting moments, but they can also be disturbing. So we invited these speakers, all of whom have a contemplative orientation, to reflect from their own experience and their fields of study and research into how we can see this process of change and how we can maybe help to direct it. And Charles Taylor, the philosopher, will be sort of presiding there in a way and drawing together the different ideas during the seminar. The first speaker is Herman van Rompuy, who's a meditator and also the politician, of course. So he's speaking about democracy, the challenges to democracy. We have two speakers from Spain. One, Marco Schloremmer from Barcelona, speaking about science. He's an expert in artificial intelligence. And we have a sister, Benedictine nun, who'll be speaking about the social ideas of belonging and social justice. So it will be a very interesting, rich event in September, information about that will be on our website.
Okay.
And it will also be connected, in a sense, to another big project, which is our new centre in France. I don't know if you were going to ask me a question about it.
No, I was just going to remind our viewers here.
So, for nearly 40 years, we've been a monastery without walls, growing as I described. And we now feel, looking ahead to the next generations, that it would be very important for us to have for the first time really, a spiritual, a home, a centre for the community, but also a place that would be open to the world in its needs, and for dialogue, interfaith dialogue, as well as dialogue with the secular world, such as I described with the seminar. So we have been given the resources to buy it. We're starting this week, actually. We're starting the renovation work. There's a lot of work to be done. It will take us a year, but we're having people come to help. People can share their time, their talent, and their treasure. It's a journey of faith for us, but we've received a lot of encouragement so far. It's near Poitiers, and if you go to the website, you'll find out more information about it and how you can come to visit and take part in it. So it's an exciting new project for us, a new form of this contemplative life.
Wonderful. Well, all the best with this project, with your visit to Spain, and with the conference this September.
Thank you.
All of the details are online. Thank you very much, Father Laurence, for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Cameron Duty, and until the next interview, Religion Digital. Thank you.